This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Everybody, and welcome back to the Xcast. As ever, the truth is in here. This is our special Fight the Future Minute podcast, in which we're going through the first X-Files film 1 minute at a time. So one podcast for every minute of the film, which is, it's a tall order, but we're getting there, because today we've reached minute 29 of the film. I'm your host for today, Carl Sweeney, and today we're looking at a minute which begins on the 28-minute mark with Mulder still at the bar, heading for the bathroom, and it ends with him talking outside with Dr. Alvin Kurtzwell for the first time, Martin Landau's character, of course. And to discuss this minute, to chew this one over, I'm joined once again by Katie Doe. Katie, how's it going?
Hi, Carl. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. I'm enjoying going through these minutes so far. Yeah. I think it's quite a fun way to watch the film, isn't it? I mean, do you feel like your opinion of Fight the Future has changed over the years? Or do you think it's been pretty standard? Because I think for me, I'm really enjoying going back and watching it. Like, I think on the first episode of these minute podcasts, I think I gave it a 7. But going back and looking at some of these individual scenes, I'm thinking maybe I was a tad harsh, you know? So how about you? Do you think you've always held this one in the same kind of esteem? Or have you changed your mind on it over the years?
I don't know. I was trying to think what rating I would give it. Like a 7 for me seems too low, but an 8 seems a little too high, so I'm not sure. But I definitely loved it when it came out, and then I didn't see it for a little while. So it's definitely a fun nostalgia trip going back and watching it and really delving into it. And I mean, there's some things I don't really care for about it, but for the most part, it's a good time.
Oh, that's intriguing. Like, what are the big things that you don't really like them?
I think mostly it's just like it's another story where Scully gets kidnapped because of Mulder. I think that's just mostly the main part of it for me.
I think I would agree with that, because I think on my most recent viewing, I think I was more fond of the film up to the point where that happens, and I'm a bit less fond of everything that happens in Antarctica and so on. And that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
And, like, how do you think about this film, like, just to jump around a bit, but, like, I Want to Believe, do you think that's better or worse than this film?
I really don't like I Want to Believe. I saw that once. I don't ever want to really see it again.
Have you never seen it a second time?
I haven't, no.
That's interesting. I had the same kind of initial experience as you. Like, I saw it, I think, the opening night, or the second night, and there was just nobody there. Like, nobody wanted to see the film, it seemed like. And, I came out just really deflated. And then I left it a few years, and it kind of gets a little bit better on subsequent rewatches, but maybe never as good as you want it to be, you know. But anyway, that's the topic for another day, I think.
Another movie minute, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that is coming down the line. Yeah, okay, so let's go through some of the things from this minute then. I think the first thing I thought about this time, and I never really considered this before, but it seems like Mulder is more than willing to go in the woman's bathroom, doesn't it?
I mean, you can, if you're desperate, if no one's in there, especially if it's a single, you never know. You might as well try and check.
Yeah, well, I never really thought about it before. But anyway, that leads him to outside. So it's busy. One of them's out of order or something, so he has to go outside. I'll tell you the interesting thing, actually, before we leave the bar. Again, it shows how this film has become a bit of a nostalgia piece, but this was at a point when you could still smoke in bars. I don't know, you can't smoke in bars anymore in the US, can you? Or
no, you can't, no.
So when exactly did that change over? Do you know?
I feel like it's been quite a while. Like, probably not too long after this was filmed that the laws started to change.
And it changed in this country about, I don't know, the early 2000s at some point, I think. I feel like it was then. Maybe 2005-ish, something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But at this point, you could still smoke in bars. And then he goes outside. Is he breaking the law here? I assume that public urination must be a criminal offence.
I mean, it was a crime on Seinfeld, so I assume it's a crime everywhere.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting, but I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it does give us kind of one interesting kind of another film connection, doesn't it? Because we see the Independence Day poster, of course, don't we?
We do.
And Chris Carter, on one of the commentary tracks, he's quite clear that, look, he's not urinating on the poster, he's urinating underneath the poster. So it's an important distinction, I think.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. The shot is there.
Yeah, I think the connection is pretty clear, isn't it? So,
yeah.
like, how did you take that? Did you take it as kind of a dig at Independence Day? Do you think that's what they were kind of...
Yeah, I took it like a little tongue-in-cheek, our sci-fi movie is better than your sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I think that's how I took it too, because, of course, Independence Day is just... like a couple of years before this point, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 96.
Probably the year before they filmed, kind of thing. Are you a fan of Independence Day? Do you like that film?
I love Independence Day. I could watch that a million times.
No, I haven't seen it in a long, long time. I remember it being, I don't know, it's a big spectacle, isn't it? It's like a very, I don't know, I was going to say schlocky, but maybe that's the wrong term.
No, it is, yeah, kind of schlocky, a little bit corny, but I think it knows it, which I think is a difference. And yeah, it's just a fun way to spend a couple hours. And they mentioned the X-Files in Independence Day, so I found that funny that it was reciprocated, kind of not in a very nice way.
Yeah, that's right. It's somebody on the phone at some point, isn't it? Says something about the X-Files. Is that how it goes down?
Yeah,
like
the cable guy is saying he likes the X-Files and he hopes he gets to see it tonight. Because the signal's going all crazy.
Yeah, so it's a bit more of an affectionate reference in this one, I guess. It's worth saying that Independence Day, like, the X-Files film was a pretty big film, but Independence Day was huge. At that time, this is according to Wikipedia, so let's just say that, but the combined worldwide total gross of $817 million came second only to the worldwide earnings of Jurassic Park as the highest of all time, up to that point, I guess. Sold over almost 70 million tickets in the US, and it's still the 72nd highest worldwide grossing film of all time, apparently. So to just give a comparison with this film, The X-Files, Fight the Future, it had a total worldwide gross of $189 million. I mean, which is still, that sounds like a lot of money to me, but I guess just in comparison to this big blockbuster, it's not quite as much,
Also, appealed to a much broader audience.
Yeah. Anyway, Fight the Future was the 23rd highest grossing film of 1998, though. And it's number 10 for the PG-13 rated films released that year.
Oh, wow.
So it was not too shabby at all. Not too shabby, I don't think. Do you feel like, at this point in time, so 98, I guess we'd had a year or two of like X-Files mania by this point, hadn't we? Where everybody seemed to be talking about it. It was this really cool thing. Mm-hmm. I guess we're kind of getting to the tail end of that, would you say? It kind of dies off a bit after the film?
I think so, because then you go into season 6, and I feel like 4 and 5 were the real big years. It was on every magazine, it was everywhere. And then I think it definitely kind of tails away.
I suppose there's only, you can only, whatever is the big thing at any one time, it can't last forever, can it? I think 5 years seems, a few years seems to be kind of the upper limit, doesn't it? And then people move on. All right, so what did you think of, so Martin Landau turns up here, doesn't he? I guess is the main, we've seen him in the bar, we saw him just looking across the bar at Mulder, but here he turns up and we hear him talk for the first time. So yeah, what did you make of that?
I liked it. I liked how he just sort of appeared and you're not really sure what he's doing out there. He's just sort of staring at Mulder, oddly, while he's doing his business.
Yeah.
His official FBI business.
Yeah, and as we said with someone like Glenn Headley, this is someone who people, maybe regular moviegoers would have known from other things. Do you know him from much else? Have you seen him in a bunch of other stuff? Or is it mainly X-Files that you associate him with?
Mainly this. I've read what he's been in, but it's, I'm not really that familiar with his work.
Okay, well, let's we can fill in a little bit of that then. So, he's actually, he died now. He's dead now, sorry. When was it? I feel like it was 2017. Let's have a look. Yeah, July 2017 he died, aged 89, very sadly. But he was quite a esteemed actor. He was actually nominated for 3 Academy Awards in the course of his career. So, 1989 he was nominated for a film called Tucker, The Man in His Dream. Mm-hmm. Then they're all actors in a supporting role. I guess he wasn't a big leading man necessarily all the time, but he had a lot of good supporting roles, like he does here. Then in 1990, he was nominated again, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Crimes and Misdemeanors. And then he won an Oscar in 1995 in the Tim Burton film Ed Wood, where he plays Bela Lugosi.
Oh, okay.
Which is a really fun performance, yeah. So I guess he's kind of hot at this point. It's just a couple of years off his Oscar win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, nice to get a big name in the film. Yeah, what he says, basically, he starts to talk, and we'll get into it a bit more in the next minute, I guess, but he's trying to kind of hook Mulder in at this point. He says, isn't that what the Bureau accused you of in Dallas? Standing around holding your yank while bombs are going off.
Yeah.
And how did you take Mulder? Because he's not, like, immediately open to him, is he? It's kind of interesting, I thought, how they played this scene.
Yeah, he kind of just looks away in disbelief. He's sort of, who's this weird guy out in the alley? But how does he know about Dallas? He's intrigued.
He's intrigued, but he makes Kurzweil kind of work for it, I think, doesn't he? Which I thought was interesting. Okay, yeah, we'll talk a bit more about Landau and Kurzweil and Mulder in the next minute, I think. Yeah, because for the next minute, Katie, you'll be back with me for that, won't you? Which has Mulder and Kurzweil still talking in the back alley, and it ends with them still talking. They move inside the bar. So yeah, it'd be fun to move on to that minute, won't we? Minute 30 is next one.
Sounds good.
And I'll tell you what, before we go, one thing we should mention is, like, how do people find you online if they want to, Katie? Are you active on Twitter and Facebook? And
I pretty much only, talk about X-Files on Twitter, and not that often, but I'm at Designer Doe, and then I'm also in the X-Files basement, the XCast basement. Yeah,
which is a really cool, really good place if you're listening and you haven't joined up yet. It's, XCast basement, X-Files basement, the XCast podcast fan group on Facebook. So please join us there if you can, listeners. All right, so that's all until next time. Hope you can join us again. Until then, remember, as always, trust no one.
Previously on the We Made This Network. The Movie Palace.
All I know of the Oscars, what I've seen on television, what I've read. What sort of work goes into putting on the kind of show that most of us are familiar with, from the TV?
The preparation starts weeks and weeks before. There's such a huge buildup with the Oscar nominations. Here in Los Angeles, they're announced at, I think it's like 5:35 in the morning. And I remember going to the nomination announcements a few times. And, there was always this gigantic, breakfast banquet. All the press were there, really this giant buzz in the room. Everyone's super excited to hear the announcements.
We buy records.
One of our listeners, they were walking past a charity shop where they saw someone had left records. And not just a few records, 6 bags of records.
Oh, shit.
So they eyeballed these records and thought, it's a bank holiday. It's Sunday today.
So let me guess, they thought it would be only right for me to prevent them getting nicked by somebody by me nicking them.
Correct.
Pull or pass?
I've met Neil a few times at conventions, and he actually did a talk when I worked in a library. I actually got him to do a talk in my library. And he's a very kind, thoughtful, gentle, fun man with a very twisted brain. He is such a nice bloke, and then you read the stuff that he writes, and you're like, what's going on? This man's lovely, but he writes the most vicious stuff.
Yeah, that is very true. Begs some real questions about what's really going on inside Neil's head.
And that's said with love, Neil, if you are listening in.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.